Morning all. Today's Monday, December 16th, 2024. Kicks off a work week for me. So I'm going to walk you through what I'm hoping to accomplish over the next few weeks. Winter's a great time, since nothing's really growing, to knock off the projects that you really don't have time for during the growing and harvesting season. So let me show you what I'm focused on now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take you around the outside of the garden. We're going to target some of these chores. I've got this pile of leaves with a little bit of field cuttings. I want to get that moved into my 12 by 12 bay over here. That's my staging area for compost materials that need to eventually make it into the compost structure. Bay 1 in the compost structure at the moment is full. And you'll actually notice it's full right now of pretty good looking material. This was actually from a compost ring that sat for a year, and I finally scraped everything out of it yesterday. I put it in this bin so that anything that was undecomposed to semi-decomposed and dry at the base or in the middle would make it through the entire system, as I don't really need the material at the present time. So that's project 1. Project 2, I've got wood chip piles, a lot of them, and since I have native Bermuda grass here, it decided to colonize the area. So I've got to probably hand remove some of this Bermuda grass and maybe physically combine some of these piles. You can see there's peaks and valleys in here. I could use the tractor bucket, but the ground's pretty spongy right now, so I may just do it for a workout by hand instead. Another project actually I need to do, I need to flip 2 to 3. One will sit for a few days and one will go to 2. Another project is the outside of the garden. You can see I'm trying to set about a 4-foot edge with wood chips to keep the Bermuda grass from creeping in. As you can see, it has since taken over the area. When I first put these T-posts in for the fence, I set the T-posts, and in between them I actually ran cardboard overhanging both edges, and then I wood chipped over the cardboard. But cardboard is no it can't fight back Bermuda grass. Bermuda grass is going to win that fight every time. One other project I've got on the outside of the garden, got to figure out what I'm going to do with some garden scraps here, but that pile there is Bermuda grass that I've been hand removing over the past couple of years, and the interior of it is actually getting pretty decomposed. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm thinking I'm probably going to maybe create a temporary bin off to the side, physically move it over, maybe cover it and water it in and give it a little more structure, and compost it down and see what it turns into. Either that, or I could just wheelbarrow it over to the edge of the forest and just dump it and call it a day, just to keep Bermuda grass out of the garden. I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do there yet. Inside the garden, the projects aren't that numerous. I've got a little bit of weeding to do here and there. Got to get some carrots harvested in. In these 2 beds here, peppers came out of this one. Okra came out of this one. I'd like to get those stumps and roots pulled. I know it's often better just to leave your roots in there and let them decompose, but I've done that before with these 2 types of plants, and it's a really fibrous root that is hard to work around when I'm putting seedlings in the following year. So I would rather just kind of pull them out, mulch them over, feed the soil that way. Just my personal preference. I planned on pulling these strawberries out and creating beds in this area here. But looking at my planting guide, I may not have the available space in this area for them. I'd almost rather leave those 2 beds for something else. So I might just call it a day on these guys and just send them to the compost pile. I've got my sweet potato vine pile over there that's got to go. Figure out how I'm going to chop that up for the compost pile, because that's going to be pretty fibrous. And then my raspberries. I need to get the Bermuda grass out of the base of that, and I don't like this trellising structure being in a box because you really can't work around the front. So I may pull the whole thing down and redo it in a single line across the crowns. So that's what I've got going for this week, and I know these tasks are going to spill into the following week. So as I'm working through it, you'll see some of it. Until then. Not sure if you can tell from the video, but the pile from which I'm pulling is a combination of willow oak leaf, maple leaf, and hay / grass from a cutting that I had from a small pasture. I kind of set the pile up to do a little bit of composting ahead of time before I plan to move it. So that's what it is. Already starting to decompose a little bit. I am definitely not going to win any awards for efficiency, but that was a heck of a workout. Project's done. On to the next one. For all intents and purposes, it comes out fairly easily, and I think it's because this area has been twice mulched already pretty deeply. First in the end of 2021 when I installed the fence, I had a layer of cardboard and a few inches of wood chip. Bermuda grass went right through it when it broke dormancy in May of 2022. And then in May of 2023, I actually came back through this area and just dumped about 6 inches of undecomposed wood chip on this strip just to slow it down a bit. So when I'm ripping the Bermuda grass out now, it had to jog through quite a bit of mulch, and all that mulch that I put on top has left the ground, the native clay, softer than it would have been had it not have had that mulch layer. So the roots come out a lot easier. One more linear foot and I'm done for the day. I can wind up in a groove where I'll do this for 3 hours without moving for the most part, other than shuffling forward and back. That's not really healthy for the body. So I'd like to take it in smaller chunks, break up the chores so that I move a little more dynamically throughout the day. The north side of this fence is 90 linear feet of this. As this comes out, I'm noticing that the wood chip that's been in place for the last few years is very solidly decomposed or decomposing. And I'm thinking come late spring, early summer, this is gonna make a really nice planting surface for some sunflowers. So this is that Bermuda grass pile. This has been part of the removal from the garden space itself over the past couple of years, and I just piled it up outside here without knowing what I was going to do with it. But I'm thinking it's either going to go to the fence line or into a newly built compost heap. But as I dig through, gosh, that looks pretty good and along the way of decomposing. I think I'm pretty set on getting this Bermuda grass pile into an actual heap for breaking down. So, got 4 T-posts, a little over 17 feet of welded wire, some old electric fence that I'm going to use to tie it up with. I'll get this all pounded together, get most of that moved, keep watering in as I move. We'll see what it looks like. It's about 4 by 4 by 4. Not gonna win any beauty contests, but it should hold. With regards to the wire, I keep it off the ground a couple inches because being that we're on a Bermuda grass field area here, if this thing goes into the late spring, early summer to where the Bermuda grass is breaking dormancy, that Bermuda grass will go right through from the outside over top that wire, and I'll never be able to get that cage off. My gut tells me that this material is probably going to more than fill up that bin, so I'll probably have to wait a week after filling it up, let it warm up, decompose down, keep topping it off. But I'm actually really thrilled with how the material is looking in that pile. Two big problems with having an open heap like that, in my experience. One, no structure leads to a smaller core, so it doesn't heat up that well. And two, the broader, flatter winds up with a lot of dry areas throughout. So I'll be happy to get this thing in one big solid stack, give it a better chance to decompose more evenly. Okay folks, we're getting close to the top of the ring. Another foot or so, but my body's saying that's enough for now. Put a pretty good dent in the pile over here. Happy about that. And I think as that decomposes more, all of that will fit into that eventually. And it'd be nice to get that mowed down and level again. See you soon. Between each T-post is 10 linear feet, and the length of the fence is 90. So I'm about 26 feet into this one so far. I think I'm gonna go maybe another 5 to 8 feet today, and probably call it on this project. Again, just breaking up the tasks. So there we have it, folks. I am to the 3rd T-post as of now. 33% done. 60 feet to go. And when I'm finished with this, it will be re-wood chipped yet again for the 3rd time because I want to continue to build that organic matter up. Plus, if I do put the sunflowers in here like I intend to, it'll be a nice mulch around there in case some weeds do pop back up. Had lunch, had a cup of coffee. I'm ready to get back to it. One of my challenges now is trying to figure out where this pile ends and the native soil begins, so that I don't wind up with an abnormal mound there that I've got to mow up and around. So over the next couple weeks, as this pile to my right decomposes and breaks down, I'll keep moving material from here over until I like the grade of the land. And here she is. I'm loving the fact that we've got so much decomp in here, because that means there's plenty of biology to help break down that which is not so far. So I'm going to go ahead and call this project, for at least a week, done. Morning all, Wednesday, December 18th. Getting back to it. It's gorgeous today. And I think we're scheduled, or I'm planning to flip compost bay 2 to 3. And maybe I'll also get the plant scraps from the summer and the fall out of the garden. I'm thinking the sweet potato vines, the okra, the peppers, mustard, and the rest of the greens. I think I'll clear those beds out. And if I do have some compost left over, I might top dress some of those beds with a thin layer just to get them fed for the coming spring. So, yeah, let's get to it. The material's in various stages of decomposition. I got some fungal matter on some of it. Some of it's fairly undecomposed, some of it's a little clumpy, so yeah, now's a good time as any to get it turned. A lot of stringy bits like this, making the job a lot harder than it needs to be. It really helps when your material's much more physically broken down before it even goes into the heap. That gives it an assist in actually breaking down biologically. And it makes it a lot easier to turn too. The pile's definitely warm, but a lot of Bermuda grass, long stringy fibrous roots, a little slow to decompose. I like the color of the material because it is getting dark, but what I think I'm going to do is, after this bay is unloaded, if bay 1 is still really full to where I don't want to move it, I may in a few weeks flip 3 back to 2, 4 back to 3, just to keep reintroducing more air and heat into those to keep them breaking down. Prevailing wisdom says that if you can, when turning your heap, move the outside of the original heap to be the new core of the new heap, you'll get a better and more even heating process for the entire pile. This structure really isn't lending itself to that, so I'm just going to settle for the fact that I can break the clumps up and I'm doing multiple turns. All right, folks, it's flipped and watered in. Now I just got to get it covered with cardboard, let it cook for a month or so, and I'm definitely going to be flipping this one back to bay 2 because Although I loved the level of decomp in quite a bit of it, still got a whole lot of stringy Bermuda grass here, of which I am not a fan. So it'll break down eventually, just a little slower than I'd like. All right, time for some harvesting of carrots. Root crops like carrots are fun. It's always a bit of a gamble and a bit of a Christmas present when you pull out a good one. So we'll see what I get. No, maybe. All right, definitely getting 2 carrots in while I'm here. No. Oh yeah, one doesn't feel too bad. Let's see what we got. Come on, buddy. Oh yeah, all day. Getting back into it, folks. I got 4 beds of old plants to clear out. Here we go. I've got 1 red Russian kale plant still in the ground. Looks alive, looks healthy. They've always been hardier than some of the other brassicas I've had, so I'm probably gonna let him roll to the spring if he makes it. When I first installed all the plants in that bed, I mulched around them with fresh cut grass from the field just to retain some moisture. And now I'm taking the opportunity to break up some of those clumps as I'm going through and pulling the roots out. So in that other bed, about 5 good mustard plants still standing. I don't know if they're gonna make it because although it's 70 degrees today, yes, 70, 100 hours from now, it's going to get down to about 20. So, and a couple hours after that, it's going to get down to 15. So I'm going to give them a shot. I may put some floating row cover over them, maybe even for the rest of the winter, see if they go into spring. But yeah, if they make it, great. That's something less I have to propagate. All right, task is complete. 4 beds relatively cleared. I think I'm going to hold off on adding compost and wood chip until late winter, early spring, when some of that organic matter in the compost bins it's a little more decomposed. I'll add it then. Fresh wood chip as well. Nice planting surfaces for the spring. Since the weather's still pretty terrific, I'm going to finish off the day with some more of this Bermuda grass on the north edge of the garden. Another 3 feet done. Calling it a day. We'll see you tomorrow. Morning all, December 19th, Thursday. And as I was about to step outside, that got delivered. That makes for a really good morning. So today, as ridiculous as it sounds, I think I want to try weeding some of this Bermuda grass out of my existing wood chip piles. I honestly don't know how else to get it out of there, and using the pitchfork to try to get the wood chips out and moved, it's just not possible. I can't physically get the tines through that. It just keeps getting hung up in these vines. They can extend, 3 to 4 feet. So other than tarping, which I don't have any silage tarps on hand and I really don't want to invest in them for a purpose like this, hand removing seems to be the way to go. One of the cool things about this area that's covered right now is It's been covered for a couple of years with these wood chips. I pulled off of them when I needed to. But once these piles are done at the end of winter, I'm gonna have a pretty clear area here. And I'm thinking greenhouse in 2026. Not a bad start. Happy with the progress. All right, folks. Put a pretty good dent into this side of the pile. I'm not displeased with that. Again, I'm either gonna be pulling this stuff now in one fell swoop, or I'll be pulling it while I'm trying to move the pile. And I'd much rather do this ahead of time instead of fighting it each time I'm trying to load the wheelbarrow. As I mentioned on Monday, one of my little projects to get done is to take this little cage system down off of the raspberries and make it more of a single line trellis right across the crowns and run the string that way and attach up, because as it stands right now, I can't really get to the base of the crowns well to get those weeds out without getting my head kind of hung up in this wire. And I'd like to avoid that if possible. Plus, I'm kind of dodging and weaving these thorns every time I try to crawl in there. So I think I'll break this down, reset it, and then get that big patch of Bermuda grass out. So I got 3 lines of wire running from the top to bottom, and now comes the fun part, trying to clip those thorny little canes up with these little tomato ties. Okay folks, so we've taken down the cage. We have made it into more of a single line trellis and got all the canes up off the ground and attached. We've cleaned the Bermuda grass out from around the base. And now it's really a matter of seeing if they actually do anything this coming year. As I mentioned in my previous walkthrough last week of the garden, I installed these back in February or March of 2022, and although I didn't do a great job of tracking the canes year to year, they've yet to produce a single berry or flower yet, and I'm confused by that. The original, that's the original crown, and that's the original crown, so everything else in between and around popped up off the root system. This is all first year growth. All of this came out of the ground probably March of 2024. So it's finishing its primocane year. Next year would be its floricane year. So I'm thinking, since it didn't flower and fruit this past September, which I thought it was supposed to, then maybe this May, June it'll fruit. And if that's not the case, then I might just rip it out come July and start fresh. All right, folks, 4 days of tasks in the books. As you can see, just because things aren't growing doesn't mean there isn't work to be done. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you in the next one.